for the former president, second president, Dr. Frederick Jacob Titus Chiluba. I was appointed as an administrator in the civil service to administer his office of the second president. And he recognized my skills and actually gave me an added responsibility, which was to become his official spokesperson besides the position of administrator. And many people tell you that I did a good job. I didn't save him while he was president. I saved him after he was president. I walked into a maelstrom. I walked into a huge fight. There was a huge fight of corruption against him, and they had lined up these charges against him. His immunity was later lifted. He was charged with 167 charges. And I stepped into those shoes to defend his legacy, his 10-year presidency, and to discuss the allegations against him that were in court. I hold that I did a distinguished job. I was young, naive, but I believed in what I was doing. I heard the stories from Dr. Chiluba, I heard his explanations, and I believed him. And I chose to take a step and defend him as his official spokesperson, besides administering his office with the other colleagues.
Okay. So there is pride. There's pride. I wonder, because here's what your critics, believe it or not, you have critics.
Of course.
Yeah. Here's what they say. They say things like, Ambassador Mwamba was very political, and yet he was a civil servant. And so I wonder what you say to people who say that you were extremely political.
The issues were political. Yeah. I was the official spokesperson for the former president. All his issues were entirely political. So there was nothing civil service about the job of being a spokesperson. It's like you want to accuse, say, maybe Dixon Jerry or Amos Chanda or Anton Walia of being political, or Isaac Chipampe. They are speaking for a president. They might speak to political issues, but they are civil servants. And it doesn't mean that you disrobe them of their role as civil servants because they are speaking to defend their bosses. Yeah, so for me, that was it.
Okay, but let's fast forward a bit. Because people hold you account more over what's happened in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's the line that you drew between being a civil servant and politics was very thin?
Well, when I became a permanent secretary, when I was privileged to be appointed by President Michael Sata as permanent secretary, oh, by the way, many people were surprised because there was a period between 2008 to 2011 that Dr. Chiluba had left the PF and went to work with President Rupia Banda. And when Mr. Sata appointed me as permanent secretary, there was shock. People didn't realize that actually I was associated with the PF from 2002. I made a proposal to Dr. Chiluba that the issues he was facing were extremely political than legal. So I said, besides his lawyers, besides his pastors, he needed a political force. And the political force was MMD at the time, and it had abandoned him. It had gone to President Mwanawasa's New Deal. So he was left bare. So we made proposals of about 4 opposition leaders to help a former President Chiluba. And the 3 declined. I made the proposal that I think, Mr. President, the person who can genuinely help you is President Michael Sata. This was in 2002. Dr. Chiluba said, I don't know about that. I said, yes, he is. He says, oh, go and see him. So I went to see President Michael Sata at Farmer's House in 2002. And by the end of the day, by afternoon, Mr. Sata and Guy Scott were before Dr. Chiluba, and we started the political journey. At the time, PF had only one MP, Emmanuel Mwamba, who was in Lupososhi in Luengo. They had no one. I remember the first by-election I helped plan was when may so rest in peace, Lakson Mapushi died in 2003. And I was given ideas, what should we do? What can we do? And I helped plan it. And it was the first time that the PF was participating in the by-election, other than the general election that participated in 2002. So from then on, we worked with President Michael Sata up to 2008 when the two differed ideologically and President Chilwa decided to work with RB. So fast forward to 2011, when I was given the job as permanent secretary, people were surprised. Where has he come from? They had no idea that I'd helped grow the PF from a party that had one MP and just a few councillors to the largest opposition by 2006, displacing the UPND. PF amassed 42 MPs. I was critical part of those decisions and the activities that were being done. Of course, I was a civil servant, but you know, we do some of these things, especially the office outlay brought before me. So 2011, I became a permanent secretary, and I think I did a wonderful job. I went into Northern Province. I lobbied for water projects, for road projects, the township roads in Kasama, township roads in Mpulungu, water projects in Kaputa, Mpulungu, Isoka. I helped. The task was mine as permanent secretary to divide to birth out Muchinga out of Northern Province. And we worked closely with Cabinet Office, and the division was done. I revived the project to broaden Mpulungu Harbour. You know, we have a huge harbour in Rwanda and in Burundi, and there is no good harbour. Mpulungu is literally dead. Yet there is massive trade that goes on to the Great Lakes. So we wrote a proposal through, to the ADB, through Ministry of Finance, to try to revive Mpulungu Harbour. I found one of the largest employers in the province, Kasama Coffee, you know about it, Northern Coffee, and they were closed. I began an initiative to revive it, and within a period 3 to 6 months, we had gotten a buyer. And Olam from Singapore, a large agro business entity, bought Northern Coffee. Today, Northern Coffee is the largest private employer in Northern Province. It employs over 2,000 people. I was transferred to Eastern Province. There are some works we did. I didn't stay so much. Ngawaya Chipata, the way people talk about me, like I served a long time in Chipata, but I was only there barely 2 months. I was moved to Western Province. And again, I'm proud of the work we did. One of the key things was on Mongu Kalabo Road. And there was a very sensitive debate. When you are a new government, sometimes you want to discard the program of the previous government. So the PF were new, and there was a discussion on the Mongu Kalabo Road. There was even a proposed termination for it, that it was a huge loan. There was no justification for it. I raised a lobby. I saw the President Michael Sata. I persuaded him, and with the help of Honorable Inonge Wina, then she was gender minister, I elected her, the traditional leadership in Western Province. And the project was at 90% done. Why would anyone discuss its termination? So it was ridiculous. Usually, and the civil servants sometimes are good at those lies. So President Sata sent a team, and we saved Mongu Kalabo. Today is a masterpiece. I didn't start it. The proposal was done by President Rupiah Banda, executed by the PF. But Mongu Kalabo, I'm part of that small piece if I were to write the history. I found the Cashew project in Western Province dead. We revived it. I persuaded Honorable Chukwanda, who was Minister of Finance, and his team to come. They came 3 times. And it has resulted in an ADB application we made, to have that $50 million you are seeing. So am I proud of my work as a civil servant? Very, very proud.
But how do you mix the line? And this is the question. How do you mix the line of civil servant and everything that we know about the civil? Maybe it's us who are not in the civil service who have this vision and line that you cannot be politically attached, involved. That line was blurred.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Case.
No, not at all.
Many people say
my attitude was different.
Let me explain why. Because they will say during various campaigns, Ambassador Mwamba was here quite a bit, helping the party, and that for them is a blur of what the role of a civil servant is. And I wonder whether that's something that you can defend today. To say, yeah.
No, I'll come to that. Yeah. So I just wanted to lay my life across. So I am permanent secretary in Western Province. There's a huge lobby, among them by President Edgar Lungu, was Minister of Home Affairs, and GBM was Defense Minister, and others. And they felt that government information was failing. So President Sata called me and said, I'm moving you from Western Province to Ministry of Information. In fact, the people of Western Province, the leadership protested. Why are you moving out someone who's performing so well, who's reviving all these projects, who's pushing the development agenda away from the contested political situation in Western Province? Why are you moving him away? There was even a persuasion. Many leaders saw President Michael Sata about his decision, but he said, look, I look at the country, and in my perspective, Emmanuel will be more useful here at Information. When I came to Ministry of Information, remember one of the reasons I was fired is because of Radio Phoenix. I'm transformative in my approach of things. I'm a journalist by profession. I believe in press freedom. I've advocated press freedom for years and decades. And when I had an opportunity to be permanent secretary, I implemented what I believed in. I handled 36 licenses in a period of 3 weeks. I gave 5 national-wide licenses to Radio Phoenix, QFM, and others. These that had a Lusaka presence, I gave them radio licenses. I opened up the democratic space. I gave TV license to the Catholic, to Radio Christian Voice, because I didn't think that someone should sit on those proposals. I had found a very restrictive media policy approach where Zambian Watchdog was banned. Remember, Zambia Reports was banned, and we're trying to regulate online media. And my approach was, no, online media is the future. You can't restrict it. And if you have an incompetent media team or your policy is failing in media, you don't ban, exclude. That's not the solution. And I directed the media heads that you should ensure that your online presence is heightened. Besides, you're more believable. ZNBC is more believable. Times, Daily Mail, they are believable. Zanis. Within 3 weeks of my stay, Zanis had its own news. In fact, my approach to Zanis was that open your own TV, get your own radio and TV license, because you are a department of government. ZNBC is a public broadcaster, and you should allow ZNBC to grow into a public broadcaster. Let's not turn ZNBC into a department of government. No, we have Zanis. ZNBC, as the amendments were perceived in 2002 to reform ZNBC into a public broadcaster, allow ZNBC to grow into that. So I cancelled the tender for digital migration. It was covered with irregularities, major irregularities. It was a lot of money. It had no component for Zambian contractors. It was all being done by the Chinese. And I cancelled it. And I re-advertised it. And I said, for example, all the studios in the provinces should be done by Zambian contractors. And my tender document stated that. But I wasn't long at radio. At Ministry of Information. You remember that there was that huge cabinet meeting in which President Michael Sata castigated me, accused me of giving radio licenses to the opposition. And he asked me a question, don't you know that Radio Phoenix is UPND? Why have you given it license? Are you you think you are the brightest permanent secretary? So my journey in civil service ended in 2013. People talk about retired in national interest. I was retired, a very young man in national interest. I didn't even know what that meant. But I had an opportunity. That within a year, when President Edgar Lungu was appointed Secretary General, he called me. And there's a story to that. Because President Lungu was the one that persuaded President Michael Sata that move Emmanuel from Western Province to Minister of Information. So within 2 months, I was fired. He felt extremely bad. People that are close to him will tell you. He talks about it. He felt that, did I make him lose his job? He was doing very well in Western Province. Distinguished job, with stakeholders working very well. We move him to Minister of Information and he has lost his job within 2 months. So when our dear brother Winter Kabimba was replaced by Edgar Lungu as Secretary General, he called me and he said, I don't know what I want to do with you, but I'm proposing come and help me. They've given me this role. And that's how I started working with President Edgar Lungu. And within a period of 1 month, we had lost a president. We went into campaign, and the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. So, to my question now.
Yeah.
But this can only work when I ask the questions you answer. So, to my question, and I hope you remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let me start with 2021.
Are we being too critical? Are we being too critical on you and others? Because there were others, it's not just you alone. Are we being too critical on you and others who were in the civil service, but played a very active role in pushing political campaigns for a political party?
First, largely, sometimes I feel bad to the other ambassadors that were recalled because they played no part, they played no role. But sometimes, for example, there was an online story that was persistent that President Edgar Lungu had called all ambassadors and some diplomats to come and campaign. That was not true. If you go to the details at Ministry of Foreign Affairs, from 1968 when we had our first elections, our diplomats are always called 2 weeks before to come and do their civic duty of voting. So they are given leave, usually 7 days or 14 days. So the story that diplomats came to campaign in 2021 first was unfair and was untrue. They should have said Emmanuel Mwamba is playing a role in political campaigns. Maybe that could have been true. But to put a blanket toward diplomats, and many have suffered unfairly because they simply came back to perform that duty that other diplomats have been doing since 1968. Did I play a role? Yes, I did. In 2006, President Michael Sata asked me to do a media campaign strategy, and I did in 2006. It's my strength, it's my area of strength, okay? In 2011, some people in President Rupia Banda's government asked me to do the same, and I did. But of course, in 2011, my proposal was rejected because there were others, Mojave Lungu, Dr. Martin Mutonga, that were running the campaign, and they were a bit confident with what they were doing. You saw what I did in 2015 and 2016, there's no debate. So if my own president says Emmanuel media campaign is failing, falling flat, we are not communicating, the issues are many, but our campaign is failing, it's tribal based, it's not speaking to the issues, it's not speaking to the youths, it's not speaking to this. Can you do a strategy? I don't find anything wrong with that. Something I've done. Yeah, that's why.
But is there a difference between a strategy and I don't know? Is there you can help us out here? Is there a difference between doing a media strategy and actually being
implementing it?
Yeah, yeah. Is there a difference at all?
Sometimes you have to supervise it. But I was very careful. Yeah. I'm highly visible. Yeah. I tried very hard to come to the background. I never went to any TV or radio station and said, vote for Edgar Lungu or vote against Hakainde Hichilema. I never did that. I did a policy and I supervised its implementation. I agree. It was done in, I don't know if it can be called private capacity, but if the head of state requests you to do something, I have done duties that are outside my strict sense. I proposed Link Zambia with my dear friend Charles Panje. I was permanent secretary in Northern Province. He was Permanent Secretary in Muchinga. It was outside my ambit. But it's a project we proposed, the president bought into it, we pursued its implementation, and when it kicked off, agencies such as RDA, NRFA, and Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Works and Supplies at the time, it took off. But it was our proposal, Charles, and it remains the largest legacy for President Michael Sata, Link Zambia. We had proposed it as Link Zambia 5,000 to do major roads from the city to all the provinces and to connect to the neighboring states. When President Michael Sata, you know his homework was roads. He knew this country heart by heart. When the project was being revised, it jumped to Link Zambia 8,000. So would you say I worked outside my ambit? Yes, I did, for the benefit of our country, and that's what I have done. On the politics, I found a civil service that doesn't publicize its work. Remember, it has a structure and strictures. The official spokesperson is a chief government spokesperson or State House. The permanent secretary and the entire civil service speaks through these structures. I was unorthodox. I publicized my work wherever I was going on social media, something I embraced very early on. I got into trouble so many times about it, but I thought that was the most effective way to communicate. Remember, you're public servants and you...
But you have a role. You have a... when you're a public servant, you're a journalist.
Yeah.
You know, I masquerade. I always joke that I masquerade as a journalist because I don't have the papers. But you're a journalist, so you understand this better than anyone else when people talk about balance and fairness and impartiality.
Yeah.
Doesn't that equate to a civil servant, particularly the impartiality?
No. Let me make something very, very clear. Civil servants ought to be neutral. Yeah. Okay? Ought to be impartial. Ought to be objective.
Can you be all those things if the head of state calls you and says, run this for me?
I was an ambassador.
Yeah.
That's why ambassadors, for example, in America, when a new president comes, they all lose their jobs. Ambassadors come from the political stock. Even my replacement will not be a professional. He'll probably be a member of the National Management Committee of UPND. He will be someone. Ambassadors are like that. But the rest of for example, embassies, professional diplomats. You know, like at the AU, is one of our biggest missions after New York. The work that we do there at the UN, at the AU, requires that you have serious technocrats and an economist and political scientists. Have a full-fledged set of diplomats to do the work, to support the ambassador. So ambassadors come from political stock. I was appointed. And like I'm saying, you will see the appointments that President Hakainde Hichilema will do. Some will be his former MCCs, some will be people that didn't succeed in their candidature. There's nothing wrong. But when you step into the shoes, you ought to be professional. Because you have to make your country proud. You have to make everyone access your office. It doesn't matter which party they're affiliated to. And you have to do the job for the country. So for me, I'm driven by national principles and saving my country, not saving a party.
Okay, let me take a break. We'll be back very shortly. Our guest on the program, for those that are just tuning in, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba joins us on today's edition of Let the People Talk.
Hello, naomba napunda vya viatu nishichapwa nichitimu niwe. Wake up in the morning and I'm feeling kind of blue. Gotta put myself together, maybe.
So far, so good. No, don't worry. It's part of it.
All I need is one chance to drink it straight from the bottle. Will somebody pour it in the glass? There is nothing better than drinking a bliss cold down. You are the flavor, you are the best. Light up the flames, fuck up the flame. You are the flavor, you are the best. Light up the flames.
lager vibes, a product of Rebin Zambia, the taste of Africa. Power, skill, redefining the way we play the game with authentic sports accessories. Where does your active life take you? And what sports accessories do you carry to get there? Opening soon at East Park Mall Lusaka is Zambia's sports accessories giant, Pro Action Sports. Pro Action Sports coming to East Park Mall. The world is my playground.
In just 1 second, you can say, love you.
Yes.
Or even just, hello. And that 1 second will cost you just one way on Airtel. Switch to 1 way per second calling to all networks in Zambia. Connect with your people and make things happen with Kangwe Kesu. Top up and enjoy. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Now available at JJB Electronics Limited is cash handling machines for both small and corporate businesses. All machines are good in counterfeit detection. At JJB, we also have available in stock bill counting machines with battery operated and mains to beat load shedding. We are calling on all organizations and individuals that handle cash and would like to purchase these machines. Visit us on Kulimatar Building 8th floor or call 0979 951586 or 0977 850488.
Phoenix.
39, welcome back to the People Talk. Our guest this morning, Ambassador Emmanuel Mwamba, joins us on the program this morning. I do want to ask you, there's one last question I want to ask you in regards to the politics. I also want to touch on the AU and your time at the AU and those achievements, successes. So from the political end, do you want to tell us who was funding your stays here? Was that coming out of pocket, or was that government paying for your stay here during the period of campaigns? Because again, that's another thing that I've seen around, particularly on social media. I've seen people throwing around numbers of various other diplomats who were in the country during the period of the 3 months. And
I usually come at my own expense for many years, whether I was in South Africa or I was in Ethiopia. But when I'm given a specific task, official task, by the head of state that he wishes to meet you and foreign affairs processes that you are at the expense of government, because it's an official duty. And the line is blurred. You are coming to give from your expertise, what you think various actors in the sector should do. So if I'm invited officially, I come at the expense of government. But the numerous times I came, like from November to June when I finally came, was at my own expense. Yeah.
Do you think, how does that line stop being blurred for the future? Because 5 years from now, 10 years, 15, 20, whatever, how many years, this conversation will still arise. If the head of state can pick up the phone and call an ambassador, and he can come in and do work at the pleasure of the president, then these questions will always arise. So how do we ensure that this doesn't, or should we just accept that, look, this is how it is?
No. The civil service ought to be professionalized. It was extremely professional from 1964 to 1971. In fact, most of the PAs and civil servants were white people. Valentine Msakanya was the first Zambian secretary to cabinet in 1967. We had judges that were white for many years. But it's something we began to do. In 1991, Dr. Chulwa won elections, the MMD won elections, and they termed the entire civil service as UNIPIS. And there was a huge purge. And that has never stopped. There's a huge purge of civil servants. You're accusing them of being Patriotic Front. And you'll be shocked that many were accused of being UPND, the ones that are being fired and being purged. Because there's this perception that Edgar Lungu has lost election, so everyone who worked with him should lose elections. So there's been an unfair precedent where we are losing institutional memory of the civil service, professionalism of the civil service. The hundreds that have lost jobs don't need to lose a job, say I've lost. Okay, if you think that Emmanuel Mwamba was political, pick Emmanuel Mwamba out, don't punish others. But there's now a blanket term that all civil servants that worked with, especially those that held senior position from director upwards, are deemed to be partisan. And you would not understand how PF and President Edgar Lungu himself cried and decried year in, year out that civil servants are undermining me. It's like they belong to UPND. They can't see my projects through. It was a struggle the entire time. And the flip side is just, you have a new president, and these people are criticizing them for the same thing. Now they are entirely PF, which is totally unfair. An assessment out of emotions should have been done. Professional decisions should have been allowed. For me, like I'm saying, I'm an ambassador. In the US, they've even codified it, that if a new president comes in, 3,500 people lose jobs. It's codified. You even anticipate and expect it. And the new president appoints his own people, usually from the party, to be ambassadors to come to State House. It's codified. That's something we can, so that everyone stays in the line. And the few political jobs, like those at State House, maybe ambassadors at the most senior level, we can do what America has done. So at the moment, there's a huge page of civil servants, and the perception from UPND members is that it's our time to eat. Get the PF out, we get in. So that doesn't do anything to build our country. It doesn't promote the civil service, its autonomy and professionalism. You're all seen to be wearing colors. So the ones that will go in, what do you think people will accuse them? They'll accuse them of being UPND cadres. And if a new government came, they'll be purged equally. And our efforts to professionalize the civil service will have been in vain.
As far as you're concerned, in your case, there were no laws that were broken.
No, none, not at all. Nothing.
By you campaigning for the party?
I didn't campaign. I didn't campaign.
You were doing strategies
Yeah.
for the party? No laws
I've done that several times.
Okay.
For many presidents.
Okay. All right. I had to ask because Mwamba's question via our WhatsApp line is just that. Can you confirm to me if you broke the law when you came to campaign for PF?
So let me put it again in perspective, that as diplomats, we are given 14 days. I think the current memo said 7 days. All diplomats were allowed to come, okay? And social media created the perception, every time they saw a diplomat somewhere, they said Edgar Lungu has brought his diplomats to campaign, which was totally unfair. You have 38 missions, you have 38 ambassadors, and you have various hundreds of diplomats that came. And many have suffered the brunt because they think everyone that came to campaign. No, they didn't. Like I said, from 1968, you have a civic duty. And these are some of the reforms we've been prospecting. That, for example, embassies should issue NRCs. They don't issue NRCs for nationals abroad. Embassies should allow a voting process for Zambian nationals and diplomats to vote from abroad. Trek every 5 years.
Okay. You spoke about the AU, and I believe your phrase was after New York or after Washington, it's the biggest mission. In your time at Addis, can you say that you were able to achieve at the level of previous representatives at the African Union? Are you able to say the kind of development that you were able to bring into the country based off being in Ethiopia?
Okay, so there are institutions.
And I know it's a big question.
No, it's okay. They are what we call multilateral institutions. So New York, Geneva, Brussels, Addis Ababa. These are multilateral institutions. How were our achievement? You saw when I was bidding farewell to the AU chairperson, His Excellency Musa Faki, he actually even awarded me a medal. He awarded me also a placard, and he awarded me, recognizing my work. We were extremely influential. I was only there, since 2019, but we were very influential. We had one of our biggest tasks. One of our nationals, Ambassador Albert Muchanga, who used to be ambassador in Ethiopia, is sitting at the apex of the African Union, the leadership board structure, which comprises 8 persons. Extremely competitive. And through our lobby, we ensured he's a distinguished man. He's done. He has delivered the Africa Continental Free Trade Area from its signing in 2017, and he has implemented it at a fast rate. And anyone can tell you how we did that campaign without resources, without funding from Lusaka. And it was just done in Addis Ababa. So the good name of Ambassador Albert Muchanga and our work got him elected.
For the second time, isn't it?
Yes, his second term. Yes, yes.
The first term was.
Yeah. And we held many influences. Zambia, was basically consulted on every major institution. They knew that if you want to push a certain matter and Zambia is not with you, it will not go through. So many ambassadors, you've seen on my pictures, whether they were Americans, Europeans, and my fellow African diplomats. Many people have never seen the Zambian embassy that busy. We're extremely influential, and they sent us in many places, to Senegal, Dakar, to Nairobi, Kigali, to the US, because of the work we're doing. So I'm very proud of the work that I did at the African Union. We've set very good base for any ambassador that's coming. He will find a fertile ground.
Do you think, some of these questions, particularly this next one.
It's a conversation, so don't worry.
When I said you were coming, I got a couple of phone calls from people who said to me, you need to ask him this ABCD.
Yeah.
And I got one from somebody who, and I won't say their name, but they used to work in Addis. And they weren't very flattering.
Yeah.
And I won't repeat what they said to me. But I wonder whether that you can understand, or there is a level of, from your end, to say, maybe, again, criticism is there for everybody, all of us in the business.
No, sometimes I get disappointed, especially with professionals. Certain professionals are educated, working in an institution, and they don't like Edgar Lungu and anyone associated with Edgar Lungu. You will not reason with them. You will not rationalize with them. No matter how many facts you put before them, you are wrong. Your boss is wrong. You people need to go. There are always people like that. Look at the work I did in South Africa. Look at the work I did in South Africa. For the first time, Zambia has never had what we call a binational commission. What you have are what we call joint permanent commissions, headed by either ministers of foreign affairs or ministers of defense. I persuaded South Africa we have a binational commission, meaning South Africa meets state to state. President chairs the meeting and his counterpart chairs the meeting. Because I find those JPC not very productive, because they are held by juniors who have to persuade cabinet, who have to persuade the presidency to implement some of these decisions. South Africa was such a huge bilateral nation to Zambia. It's our largest trading partner in the region, other than China. It is so important. And I said, first I was not JPC. We initiated JPC within the year, year I went in. And we elevated it to a binational commission. If Zambia is meeting South Africa, they are meeting at the president, His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema will be here, and President Cyril Ramaphosa and the officials. And you can imagine how effective that is if they agree, for example, that ShopRite should buy 60% of local products. It will be implemented because it's one president sitting there and another. If you saw how we opened the embassy up in South Africa, how we mobilized the Zambian community in South Africa, how we helped case by case, nearly every day I was at the airport, bailing out Zambians. Either they were robbed, sometimes personally I would just go and pick them up, give them a passport. But you hear the detractors that you were a PF ambassador, despite the numerous achievements. My work speaks for itself, and I post it on Facebook. The farewells I've had, few ambassadors have had the farewells I've had. The American colleagues, ambassador threw a party for me, another ambassador. All these huge ambassadors did that. That's how impactful our work is. There will always be petty people that just don't like you. They don't like your tie, they don't like your jacket, they don't like your hair. What a bokat, ambassador, what a bokat. You see how social media is. And you can't stop that. Stay focused, do your job, and do your job for your country. And if you're looking for flattery, you never work. And if flattery gets to your mind, again, you never work because you think you are good at it. Yeah.
So we're where do you see yourself now? So you're back in the country. For all intents and purposes, it's very possible that you won't be posted as an ambassador. So where I've heard rumors about a run for presidency, for the Patriotic Front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the elephant in the room, there has been an election in Zambia. The past ruling party, PF, lost elections. President Edgar Lungu lost elections. President Hakainde Hichilema won elections. I think that's where we start from. President Hakainde Hichilema has a wide mandate, over 1 million difference. He won up at around 62%. I think this is the second highest to the large majority that President Frederick Chiluba received in 1991, where he got 76%. So you have a president with a wide mandate. And I need to, because I was at the AU, I need to say Zambia is being held in high esteem. They are calling us everywhere to discuss our case, because we can transfer power from a ruling party to the opposition. And it has happened 3 times. The election of President Hakainde Hichilema happened at a very good time in Africa. First, remember there were mostly negative reports about the coming election. They said it would be rigged, it would not be fair, political space is closed, the opposition have not been allowed to campaign. So there were these concerns from EU observer missions, AU observer missions, and other stakeholders, and we were a diet of debate internationally about the upcoming elections. And there was fear that Zambia was descending from its democratic state and its credentials. And you have an election, an opposition leader wins, and the incumbent passes on the baton to the new leader in a peaceful manner. The transition is executed very well. This is not the story that happens in Africa so often. And like I said, it was happening at the time we're having coup d'etats in Chad, in Mali, in Guinea, Conakry. And the story of Zambia was just such a breath of fresh air. So this is my congratulations to the people of Zambia, that they rise and correct and self-correct themselves. The responsibility comes to the leadership. The leadership think that they've won because they're popular or they are good. But you win elections because of a combination of many factors. There are many people that went to vote because they don't like Edgar Lungu. They said, we don't like the carderism. We don't want the corruption and the corruption allegations. The state of the economy is poor. The youths will say, we want jobs, we want jobs, we want jobs. The students said, look, we want free education. We want bursaries to be expanded. So when they vote, it should never get to your head that you've won because you're beloved, you're better looking, or you are a good leader, you are the Messiah. There is no Messiah. This is a national project. It has to be done by all of us. And so my caution has always been to the political leadership, whoever I've been associated with. The power gets to them very quickly, and I've seen it. They begin to enjoy the big offices, the air conditions, and the big cars. They forget why they were elected. And it doesn't take long, they're participating in the very things that our people hated against the previous government. You begin to hear issues of corruption, issues of violence, the very things that people voted the other government out. And I sit back and say, do we ever learn from our own history? Our people have so much faith in the electoral process that they want to cure and correct things that they are not happy about. Do the leaders see it that way? I want to participate in these conversations. I don't have the strictures of being an ambassador. When I speak, they're saying he's a civil servant. Now I'm free. I'm free to participate and query, critique, and raise issues.
But participate in one sense.
In many senses. These are public in a political, civic manner.
Yeah, because the rumors are, and I have to ask you so that you can just put this out there, and let's end this conversation or debate or whatever you want to call it. But the rumors are that there is an intention to run for president.
So
for the
let's start with, for example, I've seen the many posters, people distributing my pictures on Facebook. I just arrived on Saturday. I'm yet to make any decision. Will I go to the Patriotic Front? I've been associated with the Patriotic Front since 2002. That's why I narrated the story. People may not know to how far, how we, in fact, the first time I met Honorable Davis Mwela, he was Mine Workers Union of Zambia Secretary General. I met him, and when we organized in the first rally for PF in 2003. So I've been associated with the Patriotic Front from 2002. That's our institution. I participated in the 2000 elections at a very critical level. And my boss then was Dr. Chulwa. There are many assignments we did, diplomatic, international, to support the PF at the time. So I might gravitate when I decide to the PF, but we have to recognize that the PF is an institution. It has its own leadership, it has its own structures, they have their own program. If I'm welcome there, I will participate in the programs out there. I've been away for the last 7 years.
You've been away, but let's not lie. You've already said this morning, you've already said in the past 50-odd minutes that there is a very close link between yourself and the party. So it's not like they're welcoming you as somebody they don't know, to someone they know very well.
Yeah, true.
And the way ambition works is, ambition works in an interesting way, because if you are ambitious, you already know what your next steps are.
Yeah, yeah.
So has the thought crossed your mind? Maybe that's a better question. Has the thought crossed your mind to say, look, there's a vacancy clearly in leadership? Maybe this is my calling. You and I once spoke on air.
Yeah.
When you were at Addis in Addis.
Yeah.
And you said to me something to the effect of the Lord sort of guides you where you go. Paraphrasing you.
Yeah.
So here we are now.
You should write my book. Lucci should write my book.
Is the Lord sending you in a particular direction? Has He shown
in my view, everything happens for a reason. I'm not ambassador today because the Lord deemed it so. He sees the end from the beginning. And do not get surprised with both good and bad that happens to you. I've always said I'm a vessel. When I was sent to Northern Province, many people thought I should run a ministry. I said, no, for me, I'm a vessel. I can save our people wherever I am. And I served for 4 years in the rural areas and came to Ministry of Information. When I was sent to South Africa, there were many persuasions that come back to Zambia, come and help. This party is losing direction. I think the president needs help. So many things going wrong and nothing is being done. Our media perspective is failing. Come back home. Even if I wish to come back home, it was never my decision to come back home. I let it. And after 7 years, when you understand why the Lord kept me away, and I look at colleagues that remained here, you say, oh, probably He preserved me. Being so energized, I don't know what I could have been involved in if I was here. But I know myself that I'm principled. I've said no to corruption in its face. Several times I write about it. There's one time I even put a big story on my page when Zambia had the biggest power crisis in 2015. And I negotiated for power from South Africa at 7 cents for 300 megawatts and 300 megawatts for the mines, 600 megawatts. At the presidential level, and the president even sent his Minister of Energy at the time, Doris Leah. She came. We had to pull out President Jacob Zuma from Nkandla, where he was enjoying his leave, because it was in December. And we hammered out that deal, 7 cents. With wheeling charges, it was coming to 9 cents. The project was scuttled because someone had negotiated for a power ship from Mozambique at 18 cents. I couldn't understand the sense of betrayal to your own country. Here you have 600 megawatts at the lowest you can have in the region. They didn't even want advance payment or quick payment. Yet people negotiated for something very expensive, unreliable, and far off. I wrote that story on my own page while I was ambassador. And I received so many calls and so many threats. People said, I don't even think you wake up with your job tomorrow. I said, well, if there's acts of corruption in your face, you don't say it, you are part of it, whether you've participated in it or not. So there are many times internally and externally I did that.
Okay. You still haven't answered.
Which one is
You
your
still haven't
question?
answered. What's the plan?
Well, the plan is very simple. I'm here, I arrived on
Is there
Saturday.
an intention at some point?
Of course, I want to
Okay.
go.
If there is an intention,
I have to, like I said,
You have to
the
say
PF
so.
is an institution.
okay,
It's
is
at-
there
it's-
interest?
it's-
Is
it's-
there interest?
Yes, there is.
Okay, there you go.
You know how I should
We
answer
were
this?
there and
Let's
then-
start
yeah.
from 2015.
Yeah.
When President Lungu gave me a job to go to South Africa, I said, I want to be in Kasama. I went to campaign in Kasama. He said, no, there's your dear brother, Kelvin Sampa. He's been there, the last 2 years. I think give him space. I've given you a job. Are you declining my job? So you don't say no to your president. And for me, that was national service. So I went to South Africa. In 2016, my dear brother, Maul Sampa, resigned in Matero 6 months before elections. I said, oh, I have some association with Matero. I've got a property in Matero. I said, when I came from the Commonwealth, I came and settled in that constituency. So I came over and went to see the president. I said, I want to resign and pursue Matero. Because now you are not going to say there's your brother there. My dear brother was there, has resigned. Let me pursue it. And of course, that request was declined, and I was told to go back. In this year's elections, I still came back, tendered my resignation. I want to participate in elections. I want to go and stand in Kasama. So if there have been political intention, the story tells itself from day one, from 2015.
But that's from a very, I hate to say
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and they'll kill me for saying this, but you can't compare member of parliament to president of a political party.
No, the position of
So-
president is service.
So
That,
is it-
yeah, I don't know why people look at it with mystery.
No, but
You
know
know,
what I mean.
that's
You
why
know what
the
I mean.
acts of corruption and abuse of
But you
officers
can't
occur.
But you can't compare standing as an MP. Anyone, I hate to say it, but
For
anyone
me,
can
what
stand
I
as an MP.
know, the Lord picks leadership. He can take a David from the bush and make him king.
Okay, so if the position of MP suddenly opens up, whether it's in Kasama, it's Matero, or somewhere else, that's
I can
legitimate choice.
pursue. I will pursue.
All right.
Yeah. So the issue of leadership at presidential level is not even nothing to be excited about. If the Lord has said he will give you that position, it will come. And you've seen how many people injure themselves trying to get positions that they are not adequately prepared for. And that's why for me, in my entire discussion with everyone, I have always warned people who keep on saying that one can't be president. No, Akainde can't be president. Michael Sata is too crude, he can't be president. You don't know the Lord's intentions. And never underestimate, don't think you are so better that you begin to divide and judge who can be and who can't be. Because it will be very difficult for you to come and eat your words when Michael Sata becomes president. It will be very difficult for you to be president, to eat your words when Hakainde Hichilema becomes president. So never say Mwamba can be president or who can be president. You just never know. And don't say, I want to be president. What if you will not be? Will you accept any other position? So for me, my approach has always been service. Serve and let the work speak for itself.
Okay. I want to invite listeners. So if you want to call us, you can. 226.
Before you go to your callers.
Let's hold on, because I do want to ask you one last question, and then you can also make your point. So I'll just throw out the numbers there: 226-841, 0978-8958. Okay, the WhatsApp as well. And thanks a lot for everyone who's been WhatsApping over the past 57 minutes or so. There's something that you said, and I didn't pick you up on it. But in my brain, I said, I'm going to ask him.
Yeah.
You spoke about the president calling you, saying that the media is all over the place. We sort of need help. The campaign is tribal, etc., etc. When you look back at the campaign, I don't know if you're allowed to say it, but whose decision was it to push that tribal narrative? Does it worry you that tribal narrative even now kind of still continues post-election?
Yeah. In fact, it's very important to do a post-analysis. For example, why did the PF lose power? one of the reasons is exactly that, tribal campaigns. Our country wants to be united. And if you look at the register and the demographics of the young people on the register, look, my children are now as Movitas, my wife is Lozi. But would you tell from that? You can't tell. And that's a population of Zambia. It's so diversified, but yet so united. You might call someone because of their surname, and you'll be surprised that they're actually from your village. It's extremely dangerous. And the register showed young people. What were the needs of young people? It was jobs, not tribal campaigns. Answer to the issue of jobs. Answer to the issue of opportunities. What was another matter? The state of the economy. It was in crisis because of other than climate change, COVID-19. The huge borrowings was beginning to show effects because projects were stored, suppliers were not paid. There were key issues you could attend to that the voters wanted a solution to. Our people are united. In our homes, we don't discuss tribes. It's actually just found in politics, and we have a duty to eliminate it from politics. It's not in our homes, and many people do not understand that. The issue, whether it's UPND or PF practicing tribalism, they need to be condemned outrightly. If appointments are tribal, condemn them. Our people do not want that. The reason, for example, they voted this government is to provide jobs, provide opportunities, revive the economy, resolve the issue of the debt crisis. And so don't recede into the mediocrity of things our people have rejected again and again. And there's been a tendency where politicians build their bases from where they come from. That in itself is tribal. We need to build political parties that have a national character from inception, not where you recline and recede to where you are. You come from first and build a base, because that in itself is tribal. And our people rejected all those things. You need to understand why the PF lost elections in order for the PF to rise. You need to acknowledge the mistakes that were made. You might even need to say the sorries for things that were wrong. You might have to atone for those mistakes and sins.
Atonement is something that you agree with?
Yeah.
If there were sins that you...
Oh, yeah. I wrote an article the other day that Stop Harassment of Presidents, and many people came on my page saying, Emmanuel, you are condoning corruption. No. That was very specific, because we have built a culture where every succeeding president trashes his predecessor, accuses them of corruption. Kaunda was accused of stealing $4 billion. Did KK steal $4 billion? Of course not. It was done for political purposes. Names were destroyed, people were fired, searches, we got FBI, we got all people. Mwanawasa came into office, accused Chiluba of stealing millions of dollars, went to parliament, lifted his immunity. What was the recovery? We brought FBI, Serious Frauds Office from UK, Scotland Yard. We built a commission to pursue those crimes. 40 million pounds later, there was nothing we did a recovery. In fact, the PF became very big, displaced UPND in 2006 because of the manner they accused Chiluba and treated Chiluba. Because I saw Chiluba go to work. I saw Chiluba make phone calls, shift his own MMD base to the PF. I saw it. 2011, President Rupia Banda was accused. His immunity was lifted. What came of that investigations? And my point is, we've been fighting corruption the wrong way. Even if you lift Edgar Lungu's immunity, it takes you nowhere. If your law enforcement agencies are not professional, if you don't respect the Auditor General's reports, if you don't plug the leaks and the corruption that's going on in procurement processes, if you don't reform your procurement law, your exercise is in futility. Prosecution pleases people. That's why dictators line up people in the firing squad. There's a cheering crowd. That's if you're a student of history. It takes you to the gladiators. When the country is preoccupied with issues, take them to bloody sports. The country is, so that's like a bloody sport. It's like gladiators. Line them up. Who are the thieves? Gentlemen, you are poor because these 9 thieves stole from you. That's why you are poor. You have no jobs. So it's a very easy card to play. But we have seen it played again and again at the expense of our country. Our further resources are lost. And you know what suffers it? Is a fight against corruption. Why are we having this issue of massive acts of corruption? If we could have dealt with institutions when we had those allegations against Dr. Chuluba, it simply means the last 20 years we've done nothing to strengthen the fight against corruption because these matters are repeating. What would stop the current ministers to be thieves, to steal from us? We wait another 5 years and line them up and point at them as the thieves. That's why we don't have jobs. That's why we don't have medicine in our hospitals. So for me, it's futile to go to lift former president's immunity. It doesn't help. It doesn't save this country. In fact, the Constitution agrees with me because they've now insulated the institution of lifting immunity. They've strengthened the mechanisms so that excited politicians don't just go to Parliament and lift someone's immunity. It doesn't mean that I'm condoning acts of corruption. I've condemned acts of corruption, and I've practiced against it, reported against it, acted against it, fired people that were corrupt. So it's not that. But it just divides the country. And I can draw lines to the region where nations are asunder because you are pursuing a former president. I'm a diplomat, although former diplomat, but you can see what is happening in Angola. You know, they are now, 5 years later, had to bring the former president back in the country after he was exiled from his own country. You can see what's happening in Botswana. In South Africa, the city of Durban, city of Johannesburg bent down, billions lost because they arrested a former president. Is it worth it?
Okay.
You know.
Right.
So that's my point.
Yeah. All right. Let me take a couple of calls. Just wear your headphones. Morning.
Hello. Good morning. Mwashuken.
This is Lawrence on the line.
Mkwaiwa Lawrence.
Your Excellency, I think this is very well. I think you should continue. Now, I've got 2 questions. One is that it's only one count that is calling from calling on the report of the President Lungu, the UPNG and their surrogates, and we know them. Okay? Their surrogates and their cadres. Why that UPNG are so desperate to remove Edgar Lungu's immunity? What is the gist here, Mr. Mwamba? And then, also, Mr. Mwamba, what's the assessment of UPNG in power for 2 months? Because for me, what I've seen so far, crime rate has increased. All I've seen is persecution against perceived enemies. And I say, you know, they don't have their hand in it, but they're doing that to enjoy it. Because if you look, Mr. Mwamba, there's a program on Facebook called Vaquitu. They are calling on the arrest of PF members, and they're enjoying it. They said to take him, for example, the arrest of Delshama. They said take him to the Sheka Road, take him through the pinch. And then on the other side, they're saying, no, we are following the law here. We're persecuting them at worst. They are calling on this person, Sazi, to take Delshama through that route. That's what just happened. So the question is, do you think UPNG, when there is power, it will be free? That's my question.
Lawrence, thank you very much, Lawrence. Let me add two other calls. Hello, morning. Morning.
Ninashukuru Michael.
Yes, nashukuru Michael.
Mlishani bwana
Karabe sabalishani.
inatemwa sana mpaka kumumfa kabili sale kupala Mwamba wetu ya excellence.
Iyo Natasha sana yama Natasha sana. Kwa ishukulu ni mishiba. Nani asha mishiba?
Ile mwarishiba, I know where PF was born. Umwaka no uchiku nakachita. Ile chari nkali baba Mwamba. Mwandi ni pakulusa PF. And there were a lot of things which went wrong towards PF. Ero kabili balisa chirikama tutabare umfwa. And from Secretary General, Uriyo Murumendo David Simwira, taba kuinoyo. I tried to put bank appointment to Monavakateka, but I couldn't. They were blocked me. I went to set out myself from Mwamba almost 3 times. So that in Monavakateka, but nobody gave me time. There were a lot of things which went wrong. And the people who were surrounding my ethical room who set out, now over to be paying Timan. You see, in a child in Kalipa, but child in Kalipa. Because we made this PF and it's about them paying but I tried to put in Governor by ethical room, child in Kalipa. I want to work very.
Yeah, we lost him. Just try and call back 226-410-978-895-895. I've got Rafael Nakachinda on the line as well. Mr. Nakachinda, morning, how are you?
Good morning, President Mwamba.
My dear brother, my own pastor, how are you?
Right, how are you?
Thank you very much.
Now, I'm calling basically because I think some of the issues you have raised and your submission basically are important for our country at this particular stage. Because for you and me, I think it is a deja vu because we've been at this before, and you have also been privileged to be at the center of somehow something that looks like the UPND want to repeat. I think it is important in speaking to issues of national unity, which I think you have touched, in speaking to the fact that previous regimes, or if we were to talk about the time of Dr. Chiluba being persecuted, how much time was wasted on that adventure and how people's lives have been destroyed. And up to today, as a country, we have not even been able to restitute, to be able to get some of the people whose lives, and not only their lives, the lives of their children, and it becomes even generational in terms of the effect of such, decisions. Don't you see the risk of actually seeing divisions in this country? Because, like you said, the growth of Patriotic Front was as a result of the fact that Dr. Chiluba he realized that this is a political fight, and he could only defend himself politically outside just the court processes that are going on. And eventually that he shifted was more on a regional line. And eventually was that is how the UPND themselves also found themselves in a situation where they also become entrenched in a regional area. Now, if we look at the future, if we continue on the trajectory that the UPND have undertaken, don't we see ourselves ushering ourselves into conflicts that, as an ambassador and the exposure on the continent, we may end up into if it doesn't stop? What advice would you give to President Hakainde Hichilema in terms if he so desires to really deliver as president? In view of your experience, which I think personally I've had a closer encounter with.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Luch, can I answer those two questions? The 3 questions. Let me start with Honorable Nakachinda's question. It is for this reason that I wrote that public article and put it on my page, because I feared we're not learning from history, we are repeating the mistakes of history. There's a tendency always for other people to use the presidency to exact punishment against their opponents. They might not like President Lungu for one reason or another. He could have injured them. And they find it suitable to use the office of the president to punish the predecessor. If you look at the statements by President Hakainde Hichilema, his first major statement at Community House, just after he was elected on 14th August, you look at his major statement at inauguration, you look at his statement in Parliament at the official opening of the first session of the 13th National Assembly, you will see a man determined to unite this country. You see a man speaking very well about us moving out from issues of exclusion, issues of tribal, giving each Zambian chance. You see him speak to the distribution of resources across the country. But the practice of politics appears to be different. You know, the many calls I've received, you know, since people began to throw my name on social media, where people still don't live in their homes because they are being beaten, they are being harassed. Yet the president has directed to the police that there should be no further political violence. The cadres are back in markets and bus stops. You might have a debate about it, but they are back. Ask anyone. The very thing that made our people make those decisions, wake up at 04, are being repeated slowly. And Bashkulu from, the man who said he was the founder member, I know him very well, is very right. He says he couldn't access President Edgar Lungu. Even President Hichilema now, I can tell you if you call any UPND member, they're already finding it difficult because the presidency is a bit exclusive. The guards and gatekeepers arise. Someone controls the diary of the president. For one reason or another, you might see him, you might not see him. You can actually be a minister and go on months without meeting the president. You only meet him in cabinet. I've seen the statecraft, how it works. It is up to the president, and something I learned from Dr. Chiluba, who dedicated Saturdays and Sundays to see people outside the infrastructure. Because the bureaucracy closes you up. These are people that are honed to keep their jobs or are learning to keep their jobs. They don't want anyone to bring a negative report against them. So presidents do suffer from that. And I can tell you, even President Hakainde Hichilema must be suffering from that. I have seen it with many presidents. But what should the president do? I'm giving you an example of Dr. Chiluba, who reserved his weekends to see other people outside the structures. So he had maybe in the morning the clergy, in the afternoon party structures. He himself would pick his former friends, because then you have an audience that will tell you what is on the ground, other than reports from OP or from your officials. And the way state power is, we are practicing power like kings. They begin to treat you like a king. And many times it gets to your head, you forget you are a servant. So it's exclusionary in nature. It has to be you, the leadership, to make your offices accessible. There's something I personally did in my office. There are no appointments to my offices. Anyone can tell you. If you turn up at the door, I have an opportunity to see you, I'll see you. If I have a big meeting, I'll wait. I'll ask you to wait. Finish the big meeting and see you. So there are many things you can employ. Let me come to something that Honorable Nakachinda has spoken about. Are we walking the same path? Are we failing to learn from history? Yes, we are. And that's why I've said it's not necessary, it's extremely divisive. The fight is always selective. The fight, especially when you target the president, it becomes a political witch hunt. It loses meaning why you should fight corruption. I understand Zambians want whoever stole to return their wealth, whoever abused their offices to be punished. I understand when they want those that were corrupt to be punished. I share the same concerns. But for former presidents, I say it becomes quickly political, divisive. Sometimes it degenerates to tribal enclaves. Already you've heard the president speak about it, that they are saying, I am tribal in my pursuit against corruption, because that's what happens. My point has always been, pursue the crimes, don't pursue the personalities.
Let the evidence speak for itself.
And let the evidence speak for itself.
This is why, when I read your piece, I actually agreed with it. I actually agreed with many of the points that you made, because my point has always been, pursue the evidence. If the evidence points you in a certain direction, go for the person that the evidence points to, regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter whether it's...
To my knowledge, there has been no official investigation against President Edgar Lungu that we have seen. And, we humiliated Dr. Kaunda, who was so respected across the continent. We came and destroyed Dr. Chiluba, who was hailed as, as a father of democracy in Africa, because Zambia was the first one to go to multi-party democracy in 1991. a gentleman in President Rupiah Banda, distinguished diplomat, they tried to muddy his name down. And, his immunity was lifted. This is the same path. In fact, let me say this. President Edgar Lungu is being held in very high esteem across Africa because he was in charge, he was incumbent, he had powers, he was commander-in-chief of the armed forces, he lost an election and handed over, respected the will of the people. I don't know if people see how magnanimous that action is, but Africa respects that. They want to give him assignments to monitor elections here, to do this assignment for Africa, because Zambia is an example. But also this will depend on how President Hakainde Hichilema will treat President Edgar Lungu. Will he be a worthy son of Africa to undertake and make lessons for other African countries where there is resistance to give power, where people are crafting third terms, where people are unwilling to leave power? So to what extent do you want to sacrifice that? For political purposes, then we are learning nothing.
With you slightly. It's not purely political purposes. Again, if the evidence takes you to somebody, they should be persecuted.
There's something.
That's the only thing I'll say. That's the only thing I'll say.
Let's take the worst case scenario.
Morning, how is it? Yeah.
Yeah, talking to Lukulu voice here on the line.
Yes, Lukulu.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel Mwamba, how are you after?
Shan Kanabesa, how are you?
I'm okay. Nice to hear you.
No, thank you very much.
I've got this concern that I have to you. First and foremost, I've spoken very well, but I have to beg to differ with you in terms of lifting immunity for the former president, like in particular Edgar Lungu. I think for me as a Zambian, I need his immunity to be lifted. The reason is very simple. Why should we lift his immunity? It's because we feel that there were elements of corruption that was happening to him. For the fact of that, the fact of the issue that if Chiva, nothing happened to him after lifting the immunity, nothing happened to Banda, does not guarantee that even Edgar Lungu is not that happen. These people have got different kind of style, different kind of doing things. Maybe Edgar Lungu is something that you are going to find out. If it fails, let us put you on the record that, yeah, they also lifted his immunity, but nothing happened. The issue of smooth transition of power is good. Now, I want to differ with people who say, no, it was good, we are breaking it, but for transition period, which was good. What do you expect him to do? You wanted him to refuse after this next election? Because that's a simple way. That's our position. Whereby if someone has lost, someone has won, there's a smooth transition of power, and that's supposed to be followed. Let's not talk about this. You want him to refuse. You have to do it because nothing else you can do. He lost that power. So it's the issue of raising. So we are now creating a minister into this president to say he cannot even hand to power. He cannot even hold the position. That's what we're trying to do. I think for me, that's the normal way he could have done. Letting a humanity grow come, we need that want to see what really happened. Because I cannot prosecute him now. I cannot question him now. So please, we should not have to him.
Local voice. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I
just want to say, read the law. The law will guide you in terms of how a president's immunity can be lifted. It's not just a feeling that you have. Hello, good morning. Morning, sir.
Yeah, I'm Kamanga.
Yes, Mr. Kamanga, go ahead.
Mr. Mwamba.
Kanabe sabali shani.
Mwino Mwamba. Na Mr. Mwamba. La PF Mr. Mwamba. Ifebe nitile mchira mafoni wa Mwamba. Tualiba PF. But kulinga na shule chama kataji. La Mwamba kula tukilisha ndio ngawapanga kumika wono mistake kula kupira tumira ndu iwe uliwapa teso osanshani sabale umfa abantu bambitaro sariko tana namba tare batumina ufuni shule chama kataji ne background bale chusha abantu tare batumira batumira ko ifura ndiko batako namba so abantu baisa nakafara abere badebisi muira abantu banabara na trefo ya background reke n'abantu bacyuzinge notinga mwaisa paria mule bata abantu babache abantu mule lomba pamule from kafa ya mavoti ku bantu apapeli pomulemo na Mwamba akainda abantu bali mupera vote bali pusha tribe toku moyo kulanda polisi bali mupera vote countrywide. So abantu mwe na mapolisi mambo kana bali tribe abantu bakamiseka. This time abantu wale mfowino ama police yanga HH idawala leo tamamvotere wale mfona wini. But the problem is for mind up ili ashia corruption. Futi ufile uvalosha bad because muri na bafuna na wenda mu weekend. Balenga umuntu afiwa niba muri wale pushing amaji achaba utrekwa so ama petition furu tamu ile But umuntu ama policies are very few. Like me, taxi drive. Ndio ufaulu. But wewe unaweza ikata kuambiwa gari ngomoja zile jaji padomo ama taxi hawafi na wacha so na unakuwa watana pressure kama politician mwikatako kwa wasosi ya kutundani ya everyday. Mwikatako kulia. Kama politician treni nomba mfema mwe mfema kwa ndio watu mnomzambia tamuli employment tamuli shine. So ndemi lomba mule ufira abantu bagirawo mule ufira bawutibeka nabera bawutibala beta.
Thank you. Do you want to quickly respond to those questions?
Yeah, quickly. The debate on the lifting of the immunity of the former president is a huge debate, emotive debate, both sides. And unfortunately, Luchi, you have to bring me back to come and discuss that. It will derail what we wish to speak. I wrote an article comprehensive about it, and people can go to that article. But the danger, I always say, is why was President Hakainde Hichilema given power? Why was he voted for? Why has there been a transfer of leadership? Number one, the state of the economy. Personally, I want us to devote a lot of time to discussing those issues. The policy dynamics and policy proposals of how he intends to resolve these issues. The cost of living is extremely high. Crossover from 2020, the crisis is still with us. We need to see solutions. We have because we are a young population, we have one of the biggest youth unemployment. It is actually a crisis. Across Africa, we are terming the issue of youth unemployment crisis as a national crisis because it even threatens national security. Anyone can mobilize, youths that are not working. We need to attend to the issues of youth unemployment. The foreign debt. How are we going to restructure it? How will we redeploy it? Will you borrow more? There's a national budget. Despite Luchi, its numerous good proposals, such as the employment of 30,000 teachers, brilliant. The proposal to employ 11,200 health workers, brilliant. To expand CDF and take it to local areas, 25.6 million kwacha, brilliant. But the solutions to how we shall cover that, for me, worries me. Because there's a huge budget deficit there. And we are proposing to borrow, I think, to an extent of $4.2 billion. That scares me. I thought there was a moratorium on debt. Why are we putting up a budget that can't fit our cloth? Why do we want a suit whose cloth is very small? And another matter that worries me is the deployment of solutions to the crisis we have as a country. Because I've seen both President Hakainde Hichilema's statement to Parliament and the Minister of Finance's budget speech, and I've looked at the budget. The reliance on an IMF bailout and reliance on foreign investment, the perspective just of these liberal policies, for me, requires that we take caution. Because we've walked this path in the 90s. We saw how we decimated our manufacturing hub to privatizations, to solutions that came from IMF and World Bank. We know that the current unemployment crisis can be traced back to those companies in the 90s that we liquidated. So what have we learned from our earlier relationship with the IMF in the past? What have we learned from foreign investment, which we touted as a solution? And so when I see these repeated as solutions to the current crisis, I say, take caution, take caution. Should we purely pursue these liberal market-based solutions? Isn't there a role of the state? We have now comparisons, both America and China. Can't we learn from there? Isn't there a reason we can have hybrid solutions, homegrown solutions to our crisis? Why do we think the IMF should be our solution? Why do we even devote so much time in their solutions? That's a debate I want us to have. But if you say lift Edgar Lungu's immunity, we abandon solutions for this country. We abandon policy discussions of this country, things that will secure the future of our country. Corruption is important to fight. It's very important to fight corruption. We shouldn't underestimate it. And I proposed how we should fight corruption, not in the manner, cyclical manner we have done it. Name and shame, identify the corrupt, show them to the country that this is the reason you're poor, this is the reason you have no job, this is the reason we are stagnant because these 6 thieves stole. Every 5 years we are repeating that cycle, not even fighting corruption. That for me should be my concern.
Collins, and then I'll take a break. Collins says, did Ambassador Mwamba offer advice on some of these things that he talks about to the previous administration in terms of the wrongs that they were committing, such as corruption, suppression of the opposition, and other things?
People on WhatsApp will tell you that they've included me in many blogs, and I said things that were usually people couldn't believe could come from an ambassador. I criticized my own government internally. There are many ministers I would call if there's a policy on this, there's a policy on that. I would personally call. I remember that I was in so much trouble over the Lusaka Ndola dual carriageway. So the government had procured a South African company to do it at $500 million. And from nowhere, the decision was overturned and a $1.2 billion project was given to a Chinese firm. The company that was awarded at $500 million to do that road came to my office, said, first of all, what you Zambia have done is illegal, it's against the law, we have a valid contract and you can't do this. I was not aware of the project. And they said, the reason we've come to you is that they are commissioning this matter tomorrow. We hear that they've picked a Chinese without cancelling our tender, and they want to give it to another person. I made calls to State House. I pleaded. And when I heard the figures, I think I even talked about it on my Facebook page. I was in so much trouble, but I spoke against it. You have someone who wants to do the dual carriageway, 4 lanes, 2 this way, 2 that way, 15-year guarantee for $500 million. Why would you procure it for 1.2 billion? $700 million more. Other than that, that's theft and plunder of national resources. There is no other name for it. I called the Minister of Finance, who was I think, Honorable Mtati. I called my colleagues at State House. I tried to speak to the president. Other than that, we're breaching the law. But also just to be disgusted that you can inflate the price from $500 million to 1.2. So did I say these things to inside? I did, and so many times. And I have so many voices that would say yes. The ZESCO issue, I gave you an example. I called Victor Mundende, I called everyone who was involved, I called the entire team, I called State House. And someone says, Mwala pia ichukulia bakalamba lekenje. Nankulia bakalamba, corruption is corruption. Here, you risk collapsing the economy. You have 300 megawatts from South Africa. Why are you buying 100 megawatts unreliable power for so much? And here you don't even have to pay. You can even pay in 2016 and 2017. What's wrong with just doing something for your country? So yes, I did, and I raised my voices.
In other words, you accept that there was corruption in the past.
Of course, of course. In fact, one of the reasons why we lost power is that people felt that President Edgar Lungu was ineffectual in dealing with the acts of corruption. Not that he was corrupt, but he didn't deal with it decisively. Some ministers needed to be fired. Some PS needed to be fired. Some people needed to be arrested. You, as a leader, you ought to be decisive. So President Lungu received that criticism. You've seen it on social media.
So do you take a different view from everyone else who is on one side of this spectrum, who says things like there is witch hunt? Considering everything you've just said in the past 1 minute, you take a different approach to say, yes, actually, there were wrongs here, and those people should be. It's not a witch hunt.
Follow the crime, don't follow the personalities. So if Gary Nkombo did an act of corruption and Stotela did an act of corruption, arrest them both. So if you go for Stotela and you leave Gary Nkombo, it will be selective. You lose the meaning of fighting corruption. Follow the crime, follow the evidence. Don't follow personalities. Already it's being seen as an act to destroy the PF, bring it to ashes, bring it to its knees, so that there is no challenge, there is no opposition to the UPND. It's seen as an act to entrench both their political and state power. It's not being seen already as a fight against corruption. And these law enforcement agencies, let me warn, be careful with them. They play this game every year. There's a new leader. They want to hand you some things. Oh, we've arrested who? They want to show they're working. That's how they've survived the last 56 years. They need reform too. They are part of the crisis we have. Everyone goes in self-mode. ZNBC, I was shocked, covers UPND and the president entirely. The president says, cover me and others. ZNBC has covered the way they were covering PF. But UPND is very excited because it's them that are being covered. But the wrong there is diversity. It's a public broadcaster. It should cover all.
And this is the thing. Look, I always say, when it comes to media, you and I agree on many things.
Yeah.
But people will still say things like, where was this voice? Because they're unfortunate. People want to hear. They don't want to hear that it was via Facebook. They want to hear.
When I was given an opportunity to be permanent secretary in 2013,
yes.
What did I do? I diversified the voices. I gave up to 36 licenses, 5 TV stations. I gave you nationwide license. For me, it was to go around the issues of ZNBC that requires reforms.
So is it reforms or there is just a problem there?
It's culture. It's culture. I can tell you, for example, what's happening at ZNBC.
If the president can say to you as the national broadcaster, to say cover everybody, but you're still doing the same thing, then the problem is deeper than what we all think.
It's culture we need to fight. The law on their side, the public broadcaster, their board should come from, but there's a culture. Fearing, if I cover Emmanuel Mwamba, who's perceived to be PF, they will say, this journalist is PF. No, people go in self-preservative mode. So we don't reform. They play the same, just like I'm saying, law enforcement agencies. If they arrest Davis Chama, they arrest whoever, there could be a crime, there could be no crime. But it pleases the political stock, and they're excited. We are fighting corruption. We are fighting political violence. Are they? If the law enforcement agencies demonstrated the same zeal against PF cadres that died, that were killed in political violence, that were maimed, if you are fighting political violence, arrest everyone, whether they were UPND, whether they were PF. If you want to fight corruption, arrest everyone. You said there were 48 houses that were built from stolen resources. Why have you slowed down? Does it affect you? Is it one of yours? You said day one, when we come into office, Forest 27 is going back to chieftainess. It's our land. This government is 90 days. Are there your ministers or your officials, or is it the current civil servants that have plots and land and houses in there? Why are you slow? So our people begin to question these things. Is your fight genuine? Okay, A so is corrupt, but we also know about that B is also corrupt. So apply the law fairly. And I repeat, our law enforcement agencies have played this card again and again. They need reforms too, so that they can act professionally. They can follow the crimes, not the personalities.
Let me take a 3-minute break. We'll be back.
It's raining again. Plant as long as the rain lasts, and enjoy your green quality plants from us at the Woodlands Nursery. King Palms, Queen Palms, come to Woodlands Nursery. Grafted avocados, oranges, mangoes, cashew nuts, fruit trees, come to Woodlands Nursery. Pine, eucalyptus, jacaranda or indigenous trees, come to Woodlands Nursery. Roses,
Flowers, indoor plants, come to Woodlands Nursery. Make your purchase while quality stock lasts. Call us on 0955 555511 and secure your quality plans for the rains. Or you can visit Woodlands Nursery at plot 29.
They will debate. Yeah, that's a hot one.
0955 555511. Plant. It's raining again. Hallelujah.
There's no room for compromise when it comes to the quality of your bed. No room for substandard materials, mediocre craftsmanship, or any lack of comfort. Indeed, when it comes to quality sleep, there's no room for a middleman. Cut out the middleman and his markup. No need to, darling. He buys the beds he sells. Every single bed we sell has been built by us. The Bed Shop. We make luxury beds for less.
Zambia is a beautiful country endowed with natural habitats. Thrill yourself by exploring Zambia's natural parks like the Lower Zambezi. Wow at the Victoria Falls via zipline or board swing with family and friends.
You can now tour these and many more tourist destinations around the country
without worrying about high costs of travel or how soon a tour promotion will end.
iExplore Zambia introduces affordable tourism packages via the iExplore Flexi card.
This is simply an innovative card loaded with over 40 amazing and affordable tour packages within Zambia, valid for 1 year. Register today by calling 0966 157 796.
0966 157796.
Visit our website iExploreZambia.com.
On Facebook, we are iExplore Zambia.
iExplore Zambia.
Explore, experience,
and enjoy. T's and C's apply.
Today is Monique's special day. Sorted. Don't let banking get in the way of life. The FNB app is ready whenever you need it for all your banking transactions and much more. Switch to FNB and download the FNB app today.
FNB, how can we help you?
It's 10:48. Welcome back to Let the People Talk. We can take two last calls before we wrap up the program this morning. Dr. Prad, morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Imwe, congratulations. We are so proud of you. We are so proud of you. Hard work pays off. And that to my Mbuya, you are my dear brother. Come.
Remember that time we learned more from China. When the president of the President Lungu, there's also that about Kakao. You remember?
I'm listening. Just speak. I'm listening.
No, I'm listening. You got the things of the background. So I'm going to start to go to a paramundo. Today we are talking on radio. But it's going to protect you and develop from the Milan. You know, the time Milan members did what Yoruba. Bana Marigani wants to be in the seat. Right now, what the people them, machine when you see ready, when you are machine, you'll be killed. So this is not something we want to go ahead. Even the people who do it in that way, they should be ready to book. If anyone and anything is going on, getting telecom, understand your name has been mentioned. It's not going to be finished. So President Lungu said, it's not going to protect anyone, be it the flowers, be it anyone, that we want to give our Zambia. So what to do also? We got the risk guidelines from Mateo. We want to move in how you can put in Yangi, which is belonging to government facility, you said it. Minor than the attempts in yourself. It's not a theory. This is a new promotion to myself, including the national aspect in the Kawata. It's not there. We need it to the whole sport. That's land of Kawata. But you know, people left it. So with the things to go for the people, not with the you yourself, okay? We have something that in the history. This is my result. It was a capital plan. How can be free? Why are you important talking to them? Because you are wasting
Dr. Proud, thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Dr. Proud. Is there anything that he said that you want to touch on?
Yes. Thank you very much. First of all, I'll not fight anyone's battle. I've always refused that in my life. I will not saddle myself with anyone's battle. I speak out of principle. And the principle of on the issue of immunity, I think I've spoken, and I think that is bad for this country. We should never allow, let's learn from history where the fight against corruption doesn't degenerate to be either tribal, ethnic, selective, exclusive, and unfair. That's always my principle. Let us fight corruption in a comprehensive manner, in a fair, objective manner, and let's pursue just the evidence and the crime. And on lifting of immunity for former presidents, for me, I speak coming from the African Union, is one of the issues we've identified that causes instability across Africa. First, number one, sitting heads of states are unwilling to leave power because they don't know what will happen when they leave power. That in itself is a source of instability. It's arising into mass street demonstrations, people demonstrating against those leaders, sometimes even ending up in a coup. And we've seen it in Mali, in Guinea-Conakry. A thing we are trying to leave behind as Africa. So the issue of how you treat former heads of state is unfortunately in the peace and security architecture is an issue. So it might not speak to the legalities, but it does speak to legitimacy. And we have examples. I gave South Africa. You arrest a former head of state for contempt, for whatever it is, and 2 cities built over centuries burn down. Is it worth the risk? Legalistic, you are right. Legalistic, he should have availed himself before the law. But is it worth burning down a country? Those are questions I'm saying we should ask ourselves.
It's a debate
for another day.
Introduction
Yeah.
to law
So I'm proud of you, and thank you for the honor that His Excellency the President awarded you. And my issue on the lifting of immunity of the former president is not personal. It's something I fought for against Dr. Chiluba. I lived it, I saw it, how the process was abused. It enriched lawyers. It gathered around his political enemies to use the presidency to fight Dr. Chiluba. It never achieved what Zambians, in fact, Zambia lost $40 million pounds, which could be in excess of $50, $60 million out of that fight. And we are trying to walk the same path. I'm just giving a warning. Zambians can do and decide what they wish. I've rendered my voice and I've said the impractical aspect of it and just where it ends us up.
Ambassador Mwamba, thank you very much for coming on the program.
It was a wonderful discussion.
We'll see you soon.
Of course. I'm here. I want to render my voice. I've been away for 7 years. I had the gag called the job on my mouth. I don't have such a job. So I'll be busy. I've so much experience over the years. I think it's something I can render to this country by participating in both its political and civic affairs.
We were having a meeting the other day within the building.
Yeah.
And the conversation turned to the license, national license. So I can ask you this now. I don't know whether you're allowed to say this. So did you tear the license? I mean, what happened to that license? Because there's a debate around whether it's hidden in someone's table or not.
You never received it?
No, we never got the national
Oh
ID.
my.
After that conversation, it just...
So, the problem is when you have people occupying power, especially the lackeys and underlings and aides, who are petty in nature, who declare these unnecessary wars. For example, a fight against the media is not a fight you win. We gave you legally. IBA sat as a board, we sat and we granted you. They were concerned, the security report was brought. I felt as chair that there was nothing wrong with that. And we granted you. We granted QFM, we granted Hot FM, we granted Loyola TV, we granted everyone. So if the license did come, that would be strange. I'd like to learn something from it. Because legally was done and letters were done. My warning to people that occupy public office is first of all, is temporal. You are there to do God's job. Use the office to benefit God's people. Don't use it to oppress God's people. So people begin to get excited with the power and they think they can use it for corruption, use it to enrich themselves, punish that long-standing enemy, to destroy them. That's not the purpose you are occupying that office. Always, if the president appoints you in whatever capacity, recognize that God has used the president as a vessel to give you that opportunity to serve. Don't abuse that office. Don't misuse it. So where are those that were refusing your license? Where are they?
One of them is across me. That's the one, but thank you very much. That is Tuesday edition of Let the People Go.